Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Webinar Wednesday. This is our first Webinar Wednesday of the 2021-2022 season, and we have a great presentation in store for you today. My name is Adam, and I am with Colorado SIPA, your public sector partner, helping to put more information and services online. Before we get started, please note that during this webinar, you are muted. If you have any questions or would like to communicate to our presenter or myself at any point during the webinar, please use the chat box in the lower bottom bar of this window. We have a great presentation for you today and would love to hold a discussion and answer any of your questions. There will be time for Q&A at the end of the webinar, so feel free to send those questions in below as you think of them, and we'll be sure to address them. In today's webinar, we have the Aodocs team, including Richard Lowers, Solutions Engineer for Highly Regulated Industries, who will review Contract Lifecycle Management and Invoice Processing solutions and their application to your government entity. We've got a lot to cover today, so I'll let the team go ahead and take it from here.
Thanks, Adam. Hang on a second and I'll take over the screen here. And you should see a bright blue screen for Aodocs. Are you seeing it now, Adam?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon. My name is Rich Lowers with Aodocs, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Aodocs and how we are a platform for your decision to be on Google Workspace. And in fact, Aodocs is the best choice to support a Google Workspace decision. The reason I say that is because Aodocs provides Google Workspace with really all of the features and functions to be a fully enterprise class content services platform. That content services platform term, that's really a Gartner term. What we're really talking about is the ability to add to all of the great things that Google already does for you, right? Built in the cloud, a great user experience, security, right? Always available performance for the things that Aodocs does extremely well. And that's the stuff in the blue and the red there. And that is management of control and document management. And you're going to hear me reference that a lot when we talk a little bit about the features and functions of Aodocs. What that really means is document management, right? We have the ability to create content based on the context of your business process, and then management of control, be able to manage that business process and who can see what, when, or who can edit or contribute to that content when, with a full audit control capabilities to be able to show to a regulator or to another entity when somebody had added capabilities, when it was updated, when it was published, when it was reviewed and updated, all of those types of normal document control capabilities. These 10,000 different features and functions are really a way for us to be able to provide really excellent services to the Workspace platform. When I talk about these solutions, I'm going to tell you about that Aodocs has put together. I always think of them in the context of Legos, right? That you always have something that you're buying in the front end. So I'll be talking to you about our Contract Lifecycle Management tool, or our Invoice Management tool, or our Quality Management tool, and that's kind of the front of the box. But really, if you think about Aodocs, the platform, it really is everything that you can do with those pieces that may not be, a product I'm trying to talk to you about. It's the stuff on the back of the box, right? How those amazing features and functions can be used to build something specific to your needs as an entity. So the three solutions I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today are the Aodocs Qms Solutions, quality management system, really used for highly regulated agencies to be able to manage who can see what, when, full auditing of when all of the documents are published, reviewed, approved, and that type of process. Our Aodocs Contract Lifecycle Management tool, right? Really specific to the building and distribution and negotiation of agreements between entities, or building agreements within an entity or within an agency, and how all that kind of works out. And then a little bit more of the cutting edge stuff, how Aodocs is incorporating a lot of the new features available in Google to be able to provide a lot of automation to some capabilities that really don't exist in Google Workspace today. Let's talk a little bit about the QMS first, right, for highly regulated agencies. When I say QMS system, most people look at me and say, well, I'm not in the quality department. I don't really need that. Really, what we find very quickly is that the processes related to quality, document control, approvals, the ability to clearly version documents and have a process for approving those versions and getting them then published to supersede the last version, and then publishing that superseding process automatically happens everywhere within an organization, whether it's in human resources or whether it's in the quality department or whether it's the compliance and risk team. And I would contend even that happens in legal and IT all the time, right? That the same processes that you use to control information or be able to manage the changes of that information happen across the organization. And the way that Aodocs has positioned our QMS solution is really as a set of applications that can be upgraded to add more and more features. We have some very basic QMS features in our Create application, which is really standard document control, change management and acknowledgement of those documents, the ability to give people an obligation to read and acknowledge a document and track that event. Hey, we've changed the dress code policy. You can no longer wear flip-flops in the warehouse. Please read that policy and acknowledge, Rich, that you will follow that policy, and then document that event as a part of a normal quality process. And then the other two tiers, both grow and exceed, are really adding on to that capability and interweaving more processes that are routinely in a lot of quality programs. Corrective actions or preventative actions. Hey, we found a process that wasn't working. Let's go ahead and kind of make it better. Audits, both internal and external, and other types of quality events that need to be kind of managed within the organization or within the agency to really kind of not only document that you're always doing something to make a process better, but what was done and how it was done and those types of things. And then even the ability to accept information from outside of that process control, customer complaints, nonconformities found by suppliers, supplier management, the ability to hold suppliers to the same obligations that you do internally with processes and controls. And what does this look like, right? And, I'm talking about these like they're, like this makes a lot of sense right off the bat. What this really means is that the features of management of control and document management that Aodocs provides in Google Workspace, we're actually inside of Google Workspace, that we build these processes for document management, for electronic signatures, for the management of quality records in each one of the tiers of packages. And they're really built on each other and interwoven so that you get some efficiencies of documents, right? A document that I had a customer complaint about and had to get a spelling error fixed, that is all kind of interwoven to each other. This QMS application we use in a variety of different types of customer settings, whether they be manufacturers of equipment or manufacturers of information, right? It doesn't really matter as long as these processes make a lot of sense to you. There's a lot of information all at once. I know we've got some surveys going here, Adam. Do you want to talk about that first survey that you had up?
We've got the second survey question up
Oh, is
right
it up? Oh,
now.
already. I
If
didn't see
folks would
that.
like to
Sorry.
go ahead and take a look at that.
We keep everything forever. Believe me, I hear that all the time. One of the great things about the cloud is that you can keep everything forever, but you can't protect everything everywhere. That's one of the things that Aodocs does help with also. Let's talk a little bit about the next tool, the Contract Lifecycle Management. There we go. Our Contract Lifecycle Management tool really is, again, a leveraging of all the capabilities that Aodocs has to solve some very common problems for creating agreements and for creating these types of documents. The ability to control the authoring for certain sections of standard agreements, to be able to document the trail of emails or journaling emails going back and forth when negotiating agreements, documenting the approval process and automatically escalating an approval process when, Rich goes on vacation, he's not going to be able to sign an agreement. He can go to his boss to go ahead and get an agreement signed, or Rich does go on vacation and it automatically escalates because he's out of the office to somebody who has similar approvals or similar authority to go ahead and sign agreements, and then documenting all of that process and the ability to then retain those agreements and start to manage them, over a longer term. Know when agreements need to be renewed, understand ahead of time when new work needs to be initiated for changing an agreement. You're notified 60 days ahead of time for renegotiation or for pricing changes or something along those lines. What the Aodocs CLM application really does is be able to bring all of those things to bear in one package and allow the content to remain on Google Drive, regardless of if it has to be renditioned into a Microsoft Word format to share with a third party or to share externally, right? Doesn't matter to us what type of electronic file that is. We can go ahead and assist you in the management of that information, maintaining that information in Google Drive, or being able to at least accept copies of contracts that come in via email as attachments in an automated way, or at least in a highly controlled way. Number one, so you don't lose versions, but number two, so also you can do red line compares, just like you need to do in any contract negotiation for content on Google Drive, right? You don't have to try and do these locally on your laptop and try and manage all of that stuff. It really helps organizations with the management, especially when there are high volume contracts that are routinely managed, like supplier agreements or non-disclosure agreements or those types of things. How do we solve those problems? Good version management to be able to keep track of all of the things going forward. Embedded Word compare tools, so even Microsoft Word documents, we can easily show you the differences between them in the context of being inside of Google Drive still. Dynamic workflows that allow you to automatically route documents based on their approval process or approval profile, or depending on their value, right? If you're negotiating documents that have dollar values, that you have certain thresholds for approval based on the dollar value of the agreement, we can go ahead and automate those things. We can incorporate e-signature tools, DocuSign, Adobe Sign, either one of those tools into those processes, and then keep all of that information in a centralized repository. So when Rich does win the lottery and he's not coming back to clean up his mailbox, you still have access to all of those types of documents. There's no longer any need to try and find out, if you can get access to Rich's Google Drive or can you get access to Rich's email. All of that content specific to this business process can automatically be maintained and managed. And then the cockpit charts to be able to show you exactly what's going on in that context. And where do we see this routinely implemented? Most of the time we see it across the business processes that are doing that type of work. In some cases, we're seeing it with centralized legal departments where they are providing a service, and that legal department can then go ahead and give links out or services to the business areas and be able to say, click on this to request an NDA, click on this to request a standard supplier agreement, and be able to manage those types of things. A lot of information all at once. Any questions on what I've been talking about so far? Let me pull up the Q&A. No, nothing so far. Anything on the chat? Nope, nothing on the chat either. Okay, I'll keep going. Last thing is really the high-end technology that we can bring to Google Workspace, right? So our Invoice AI product is one example of information that's being brought into the document management realm, specifically using some of the expertise of Google. Google's AI capabilities have been leveraged in this particular solution to really automate standard invoice management, to be able to automate it in a way that doesn't require you to do highly complex optical character recognition tools, right? I don't have to train a tool on where the invoice dollar amount is going to be, where the invoice number is going to be, where the invoice date is going to be. The Google AI tool is actually smart enough to know that this is an invoice and that an invoice will have certain pieces of information in it, like a grand total or a discount or a vendor name or vendor address, right? And all of those things can go ahead and be automatically be pulled out of a document and used as a part of the management of that document. Here's an invoice of $16,000. It exactly matches the purchase order. Rich doesn't have approval for anything over 15, so it will automatically go to Rich and his manager for approval of that invoice. Even though it matches the PO, it'll still go through that automated process. Oh, here's an invoice for $500, fits well within Rich's authority, and it matches the PO. Because everything matches perfectly and it's under a certain dollar amount, we can automate that process. So that invoice could get processed automatically. And what I'm talking about is the ability for Google to provide Aodocs or provide and look for in any document some of the standard metadata that is in those types of documents. And invoices are certainly the first type of document, but we've done this not only for invoices, but for other types of contractual agreements where we've been able to pull out what type of agreement it is or the duration of it or the value of the agreement or those types of things. And let me get to the last part. In our Aodocs for Invoice Solution, we've seen that implemented many different ways. We've seen that implemented directly through automation, meaning invoices are received by our solution automatically and processed and sent out to people. We've seen email being the primary means for organizations to digest that type of information, and those emails then being digested and brought into a solution manually. Rich receives an email from a vendor, he automatically puts it into the solution, and then we can go ahead and get it processed, right? Or just manual processes. Hey, I've got 25 attachments of 25 different invoices, and bring them off and being able to manage them directly. The key part really in each one of these solutions is a couple things, right? Built inside of Google. So the ability for Aodocs to not only store this information on Google Drive, for us to be able to make sure that access is only through authenticated resources and making sure that access is documented, right? So when Rich has access to an invoice for approval, his Google authentication is provided on top of that audit event for when he approves the document. All of this information I'm talking about is also available via reporting, right? So when I want to talk about the QMS application and the ability to manage how many audits are scheduled or how many are ongoing or how many are being planned, all of that information is available through standard reporting and through Google reporting tools, right? Google's BigQuery tools, big analytics tools, all of those things are available from Aodocs Solutions because we leverage all of those same Google tools. And for those that are more IT centric, what this really kind of looks like from an IT perspective is that we really use a lot of the Google tools, but that we don't need to just be for Google resources. Our Contract Lifecycle Management solution is a good example of anyone who is somebody you want to provide a access to or approval process for a contract. Doesn't have to be somebody who's a Google account, can be extended into those services because we can use any type of service, whether it's Microsoft or my personal Hotmail account. We can go ahead and use those things as a means for authenticating. Also, we don't need to store information just on Google Drive. We have the ability to store information across other repositories, depending on what your technical requirements are for this type of information. That is a tremendous amount of information all at once, and I know that I've gone over it fairly quickly. Does anybody have any questions or something you'd like for me to go ahead and go into a little bit further detail and review?
Someone did ask, but it looks like you just answered, but we'll just make sure we cover it. Someone said that they do work with a lot of non-Google files. Is Aodocs able to help with those non-Google files on Google Drive?
Oh, absolutely. That's a very good segue. So it came with actually let me put it in this, there we go. It came with our ability to do this with our Contract Lifecycle Management tool, in that if you can store a Microsoft Word file on Google Drive, we can assist you in managing it. Also, any type of information that is on Google Drive, we can assist you to manage, right? If you can put an AutoCAD file on there, if you can go ahead and be able to put a WordPerfect document on there, we can assist you in managing that type of content.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Mandy was asking about a demonstration. I can go ahead and schedule any demonstrations for any one of either these individual products with you or for Aodocs as a platform individually. A demo usually takes a little bit longer than 30 minutes, probably closer to 45 minutes. So we didn't try to incorporate a demo into into this discussion today on the webinar. But Mandy, I'd be happy to spend some time with you at any point if you'd like to go ahead and show you the product in greater detail.
And for a demo, you can go ahead and reach out to either myself or Beth Justice. We will have our email addresses on the last slide of this presentation here today. So you'll be able to reach out to us and we can get that scheduled for you. We do have a few more questions rolling in, and I will go ahead and end this poll and just share the results. Looks like some folks will be reaching out for that demo, so we can go ahead and get that scheduled. We have a
looks like
question.
Gail. Yep, I was just reading the Gail question. So Gail, you were asking specifically about Aodocs and Docusign. So the way that our CLM tool is set up is actually primarily focused on assembling contracts using Google Documents, right? And when I say assemble, I mean taking approved sections or approved templates of say like a non-disclosure agreement, augmenting them with the context. Who it's for, what is the jurisdiction it's for, what are the entities it's related to, putting all that together, building the Google document, getting everybody to agree and say, yeah, this is exactly what we want, and then creating a Word document as a part of that and sending it off to a third party for review or for redlining, or actually creating a PDF of that Google document and then integrating it with DocuSign for it to be endorsed, coming back not only as a signed, but also with the DocuSign envelope showing the date and timestamp when it was signed, who signed it, how it was authenticated. All of that material then would come back as a part of that agreement and be stored within the CLM tool. So you'd have the Google document, the Word document that was created, or the PDF that was then sent to DocuSign that then went to the third party for endorsement, and the full envelope of the DocuSign event coming back into and being managed by the CLM tool.
Thank you, Rich. We've got another question on the last slide here. What is the security between your platform and Google Drive?
Oh, good question. So the security is paramount, right? Believe it or not, our this authentication here, this Google authentication service, is the primary driver. If you can authenticate into Google and get into your Gmail, whether you're using two-factor authentication or whether you've got it set up so you have to change your password every 10 days, we are a customer of that authentication. And even when we extend out to non-Google accounts, we still are using the Google authentication service to provide all of those credentials and also to provide the logging of that event. So when Rich logs in using his personal Gmail account, that's still a logged event and you can track all that, or whether I'm using a non-Google account, say a Hotmail or some other email service, Outlook.com, that's still a tracked event. So even though it is authenticated using a third-party service that's not Google related, we still track that event.
Great, thank you. Let's see, we've got a few more rolling in here.
Yeah, I'm seeing that retention.
So glad you're all asking questions.
Absolutely.
We've got one from Peter here. Do you even need Google Drive, or can I authenticate and use Active Directory to use Aodocs?
So that's a very long technical answer, but the short answer is yes. You can authenticate using straight Active Directory, which means you are not actually using Google Drive or Google Workspace, but all the content that Aodocs would be managing would be stored in Google Cloud Storage as a part of that, or it could be stored in Azure if you wanted to set it up that way. That's a much longer conversation, but we can certainly support customers that are using non-Google as their means for getting things to work together. I saw another question about records retention. So one of the great things about Aodocs is that because we can't support all the metadata needed for disposition and disposal, we can automate records retention or at least automate, if you'd like, the disposition review of documents that are eligible for disposal, showing you that why or how they met their retention responsibilities and then how they were disposed. Also, some customers use us for managing FOIA requests, right? So that when they receive a FOIA request, they manage it using a Google workflow that we put together for them, and go ahead and collect the information they need and then publish that information. Also publish the questions so that way they can cut down on their FOIA requests that are duplicates and be able to kind of publish, more broadly the visibility of, information requests and how they're managed out. But, straight records management, we definitely can do.
Great, thank you. Let's see. How much does Aodocs cost? We're a small fire district and would love to utilize this, but not sure we can afford. Is it based on how much space is utilized?
It is not based on space. In the cloud, it feels like space is unlimited. So we're actually based on the number of people who are authenticating and actually using the service. So we would certainly could figure out for you exactly what the cost model would look like. For small user groups, we are typically are under 20 users for a lot of our small business customers. And in fact, that is our second largest customer group is customers who are under 20 users. Our largest customer group obviously is, companies like Google, who is one of our largest customers, but small customers are certainly somebody we can help you and support. And you would work with our sales team on pricing. I definitely can't give you an exact price, but it is not exorbitant. Case management and case files, that's a really good use case. That's actually where our CLM tool kind of spawned off of, and that we were using Aodocs to help us manage matters, legal matters, and case management is a key part of that. We do have several use cases for case management, both in the ability to create cases that are primarily confidential and also create cases that are open up to a whole department so that people can kind of take advantage of the knowledge management parts of case management. Either one of those solutions we have put together for other customers.
Cool. Do we
the
have...
casework, I was going to say the caseworker file example is a good one. And yes, we do have solutions very similar to that.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Looks like we finished with the existing ones. Okay, here we go. In the event our agency implements Aodocs, would we work with SIPA on that, or would our IT staff be tasked with that? So you would go ahead and go through SIPA to get in touch with Aodocs. And then, yes, that is something I believe that your IT staff would kind of pick up the ball with and run with Richard's team. Okay.
Thank everybody for their time. And like I said, we're happy to schedule demonstrations, which are usually about 30 minutes, maybe a little longer, depending on your use case. And not only demonstrate the product, but really make sure that we could provide you with a solution to your challenges when it comes to document management, and hopefully do it in a very economical way.
Thank you, Rich. This was a great presentation. Those of you in the audience here, if you find that you have more questions after we end here, please don't hesitate to contact SIPA or Aodocs. You can see our email addresses there in the bottom right corner of your screen. So definitely, reach out if you have any questions or you'd like to, get in touch and see, if you could use Aodocs. If you would like to return to this webinar to view it again, or maybe you'd like to share it with a colleague, keep a lookout for the post-webinar email. I'm going to have a link to SIPA's YouTube channel and you'll be able to view it there. Additionally, we really do want to make sure that these webinars are relevant to all of you and as informational as possible. So it would be appreciated if you could just take a quick minute and fill out the short 3-question survey following this webinar. It's very quick and hopefully it'll help us stay on track with being able to provide you the most information that you're most interested in. So I think that's all we have today. So thank you very much again for joining us this morning, starting off the Webinar Wednesday season with us. Thank you to Rich and the Aodocs team for putting this presentation together. Yeah, thank you all, and we'll catch you at the next one. Have a great Wednesday, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now.